cue that music, and Greg, you'll be good to bring them in.
Greg Bergman alongside Jeff Spiegel from DodgerBlue1958. Thank you very much for being here as always, Jeff. Real fast, I just want to say that Parker Bell is doing a lot of work when it comes to the Lakers today. He's going to be at the training facility because Dalton Connect and Bronny James are being introduced. So he's going to be doing a lot of work for that. So he's not coming on, and Marcus Grant is out for the rest of the week. But Jeff Spiegel is going to be with me today and tomorrow leading into the 4th of July. What's going on, Jeff? How are you?
Is there Lakers news to report on? Did I miss something? Did they actually make a move other than just kind of, like missing out on all the guys they claim to be interested in?
So, why is that how you got to start the show off? Is this where we want to go? This is a Dodger show. It's a positive show. That doesn't happen with Laker stuff. So, yes, there is Laker news. Bronny James and Dalton Connect are going to be introduced today. That's your news.
Yeah, it is. Look, having a Lakers site attached to us makes being a Dodgers fan that much more enjoyable because I'm on the group text with all the Lakers Nation guy, and it's like, well, what about this guy? And what about this guy? And no, they chose the Dallas Mavericks, and no, that guy chose the Washington Wizards. And it's like, this just doesn't happen with the Dodgers. It's like, well, they want Ohtani and Yamamoto. Guess what? They got Ohtani and Yamamoto and Glasnow and Teoscar. So the Lakers exist in my life as a team that I root for, partially just to make me thankful that I'm a Dodgers fan.
So I want to ask just real fast. We'll get into all the Dodger stuff in a second. But on that Lakers Nation group chat, who's the most negative? Is it Trevor Lane, Matthew Peralta, or Daniel Starkin?
I would say none of those guys are super negative.
Peralta, are they all super positive? Are they like you with the Dodgers, where they're all like overly positive?
Peralta's nickname is the Optimist, so he probably has earned that. I think Trevor is like just your average fan. Like, he just wears the Lakers news when the things are great, like he's riding the roller coaster, and when things are bad, it's just like, hey, let's do a live show and just kind of be super bummed out together, which I respect. Daniel is kind of just the middle of the road guy, but I would say there's a lot of, I think Laker fans in general tend to be an optimistic bunch, like almost to a point where me as an optimist, I sometimes drop in and I'm like, man, do we really think like these guys are going to take less money to just come play for a Lakers team that's like at the bottom of the Western Conference? Like, I don't know. So I tend to be quiet more than I talk. Those guys know way more than me, but it's just, I was going back and forth with Peralta this morning, and he was basically like, hey, be nice to us over here on the Lakers side. Okay. We don't have Andrew Friedman and Shohei Ohtani, so just give us a break every once in a while.
Does Matt Moreno get in on that too still?
Oh,
or is that no, not anymore?
No, he's above all of that.
All right, well, let's get into some of the Dodgers stuff. Blue Review, as always, is presented by LAX at Los Angeles International Airport. Changes are arriving daily to reduce traffic, save guest times, and transform the travel experience. Info at flylax.com/transforminglAX. All right, there's a bunch of stuff that we can get into. We're going to get into some Tim Anderson stuff. We're going to get into some Chris Taylor stuff. You were in Oklahoma City and interviewed a bunch of guys in their minor league system. So we're going to get into all of that, and I just destroyed this iPad. But let's start in the place that we were talking about just right before the show started, and it actually just broke. So the Miami Marlins decided to DFA, rightfully so, Tim Anderson. So where are you on Tim Anderson? Because I know everybody's now saying, hey, we need a shortstop. Tim Anderson's available. Where are you?
I'll preface all this with, I'm not very confident that Tim Anderson is going to play meaningful, positive production baseball at any point for the rest of his life. He's 31 years old. He hasn't been good in 2 years. That said, the Dodgers currently roster a player that I am less intrigued by than Tim Anderson by the name of Kevin Biggio. So if you're telling me that Kevin Biggio spot cannot be taken by Andre Lipsius or Trey Sweeney or some guy they already have in the organization, but it has to be taken by a guy that, you know, they basically have no strings attached to and have no problem DFAing 2 weeks from now, Sure. If he's free, if Tim Anderson will sign for the minimum, cost you no prospects, and the only casualty is Kevin Biggio, I mean, why not? Tim Anderson at least had a 4-year stretch where he was one of the best players in Major League Baseball. Kevin Biggio can't say that. Maybe you put him in a winning organization for the first time in his life after being with the White Sox and the Marlins, put him in a clubhouse with some real veteran guys who he's going to have to listen to because he's been humbled. Again, I'm not saying it's going to work out. I'm just saying, sure, give that a 2-week try. And if it doesn't work out, DFA him and move on and, no harm, no foul.
So, yeah, look, I'm ready to just get rid of Kevin Biggio. He's completely worthless on this team. He strikes out, but he doesn't strike out from swinging. He strikes out by looking. He doesn't actually, he watches every pitch go by, and he's actually been really bad at third base. So, yes, if you want to get rid of Kevin Biggio, I'm all about DFAing Kevin Biggio. I don't know that Tim Anderson is that guy that can. I understand if you want to give him a shot and for nothing, basically, sure, you can give him a shot. But just real fast, these are his last 2 years, 2023 and what we have in this year so far, thanks to Baseball Reference. He has 21 hits in 727 at-bats. Or no, 171 hits in 721 at-bats. That's really bad.
It's really bad.
That's really bad. His on-base percentage is 271, and his slug is 274. So that means that basically he's getting singles.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything but getting singles. He has 1 home run in those 2 years, 34 RBIs, and 17 stolen bases. He has 2 triples as well, which is okay, good for you. But he is not a good baseball player anymore.
Correct.
And I don't think he's good in the field either, right?
Correct.
So what is the point of bringing in someone like that? And to your point, why not bring up Andre Lipsius? Why not bring up Trey Sweeney? One of the guys that you have that are actually absolutely doing really well in AAA. I know Lipsius isn't the greatest defender, but Trey Sweeney has been getting hits, and he looked better in spring training as well.
Yeah, the case for Anderson is, one is you're going to fill that 40-man spot with a guy that you have no issues getting rid of if you need to at the trade deadline. I wonder if that's the concern with a guy like Lipsius, is that if he is added to the 40-man roster, then all of a sudden, he's taking up a very valuable spot. If he stays in the minor leagues, he can't opt out of that contract, and the team doesn't have to make any difficult decisions. If, say, they make a trade where they bring back 2 or 3 guys who need spots on the 40-man roster, then Lipsius doesn't have to be just a necessary casualty. I think that's the case for why they would leave a better player in Andre Lipsius down in the minors. I don't think Trey Sweeney is ready. Look, I saw him hit batting practice. The guy has insane power, crushing balls. The performance, he's a very platoon guy. If you go look at his splits, he hits lefty against righties. He's great against lefties. He's really struggled. So I think that's part of the reason there. The case for Anderson is from 2019 to 2022, which again, there's a reason he's available. Okay. I know he was 2 years ago, but he had a stretch, 374 games where he had a 123 weighted runs created plus, 15 outs of average defensively at shortstop. So he was both an elite defensive shortstop and had a batting average of 318 over basically 3.5 seasons with an OPS over 800. So over that, he has it in him. He's 31. I know he's a clubhouse. He's had clubhouse issues as well. So again, I want to emphasize as clearly as possible. If you are giving me the choice, and I joked with you, if I can't say neither, and you're saying, would you rather have Kevin Biggio or take a chance on Tim Anderson? I would rather take a chance on Tim Anderson. That's the summary of my Tim Anderson position.
So yeah, you're probably right. I would probably, if that was it, if there was no neither, sure, I would take Tim Anderson. However, we don't have that choice. That choice is not in existence. We can take neither. Neither isn't actually an option. We can DFA Kevin Biggio and not pick up Tim Anderson. Those are true possibilities. They're true outcomes. Yeah. So, and especially with, and I know this is going to sound really, really weird, especially with how many times we've talked about it and other people have talked about it. Chris Taylor,
is he back?
Can play third base, and he is playing so much better, which is shocking to me. I no way in any part of me ever thought that he was going to be playing well. But I say it over and over again. At the beginning of the season, Dave Roberts said, we're going to give him 100 at-bats.
Yeah.
At 99, he started to hit, and now he's batting close to 500 since then.
No, I think I tweeted he's 9 for his last 20. He's got a pair of home runs, a couple other extra base hits. Here's the key to me, Greg, and this is the stat that jumps out, and I can't find the exact stat right now. The thing about Chris Taylor that jumps out to me is over that stretch that I'm talking about, he has only struck out twice. Like the issue with Chris Taylor was when it was like a 40% strikeout rate, it looked really, really bad. That's my take on Taylor has always been. The problem for him is when it's bad, it looks really bad. The eye test is really bad because it doesn't feel like he's close to even hitting the ball. But over that stretch of 9 for 20, which was like, a week or a week and a half or whatever, he had only struck out. Oh, here we go. Since June 14th, this was posted a few days ago. He was 9 for 20 with 2 home runs, a triple and a double, and only 2 strikeouts over that stretch with a pair of walks. That's the key, right? Like if the strikeout rate ceases to be 40% and can drop into the like 20%, 25% even range with a little bit of power, which is what we're used to in Chris Taylor, then I think you can live with it. And again, the reports have been that he actually did change something with his swing. It was kind of a major overhaul, something he wasn't comfortable with, but he slowly over the last 2 or 3 weeks, it sounds like, has become more comfortable, feels like himself. And so that's the type of report you want to hear, not just, I just started hitting the ball, but like, no, we actually made meaningful changes. It took me a while to implement them and feel comfortable, but now I'm starting to, and bang, not striking out, hitting for power. And, look, I would say playing decent defense at third base as well.
No, absolutely. I think this is all great points. And I'm just looking at on Dodgers.com. They have, last 30 days, last 15 days. It's 1 strikeout in the last 15 days. And also went back to the last 30 days. It's still also he's 10 for his last 36. And he's has a 333 OBP and over 860 OPS. I mean, those are good numbers over a long stretch now. It's not so much as he just at a little hot point. That's 30 days. So the fact of the matter is that those things are happening. And if he can be a guy that is going to be good for you defensively too, because he is a rotational piece. He can play all over the infield and outfield. If you put him over at third base and platoon him with, maybe Kike or whatever it happens to be, that's not a bad option. I would much rather go with that than bringing in somebody else like Tim Anderson, who is just horrendous as well. Tim Anderson is what Chris Taylor used to be. Striking out a ton and not getting on base and just hitting singles when he actually gets the bat on the ball. So Chris Taylor seems like the way to go from here. And I know Dave Roberts did say that they're going to give him runway at third too for a little while.
Yeah, I like it. Look, we were all guilty of giving up on Chris Taylor, saying get rid of this guy and saying, hey, we know the Dodgers aren't going to, but if it were up to us, we would. And I've said all along, and I make the same case with Gavin Lux, which hasn't, panned out even slightly. But the argument for both of these guys is that if somehow Gavin Lux can tap back into that 2021 season, if somehow Chris Taylor can tap back into what he used to be, then the ceiling for this team raises dramatically. Because you're talking about guys who aren't just like, who cares type pieces. You're talking about guys who are actually pluses offensively, pluses defensively, either in their defense at second base in the case of Lux or versatility in the case of Chris Taylor. And so the Dodgers have said, we have a comfortable lead in the division. We're not interested in winning 150 regular season games. The goal is to create the best team possible for October. And if giving Chris Taylor 200 at-bats to figure that out, if giving Gavin Lux 300 at-bats to try and figure that out, gives them even a 5% chance of these guys tapping back into something and becoming assets offensively and defensively, then what's the cost to them doing it? Chris Taylor, again, small sample size since June 14th, appears to be panning out for them. And if he continues even something remotely close to this, right? Like if he can hit 240 with a little bit of power, not strike out a ton, then all of a sudden you've got yourself the type of player that many people are clamoring for them to go get at the trade deadline, and they won't need to give anything up to go get him.
Yeah, which would be absolutely great. But you mentioned something too, like that they have a comfortable lead in the division. I totally agree, and I'm not worried about the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Giants, or the Rockies, obviously. But the Padres are playing well. They have started to find a groove, and now they're 7.5 games back, but they're hitting that groove. They're playing. They went from being 4 or 5 games under 500 to now 4 or 5 games over 500. So they're kind of coming along. Can they just sit back and just think about these types of things, especially with all the injuries? And really, maybe where I want to go next with the pitching staff. The pitching staff is starting to kind of fall apart a little bit. Yamamoto's on the IL. Kershaw had a setback. We didn't see what Bobby Miller's tonight. Going to be Bobby Miller, I believe, and he has not looked good since he came back. Obviously, Paxton got absolutely destroyed on Sunday, and Glasnow didn't look good on Saturday. Yeah. So it's really been Gavin Stone has been the best, and Landon Knack looked good too. But besides that, the pitching staff is kind of falling apart. Where are you on the pitching staff?
Real quick on the Padres, I'll be curious to see I think the Dodgers and Padres both have an interesting road into the All-Star break. Both teams play the Diamondbacks. The Dodgers play the Brewers, the Phillies, and the Tigers, whereas the Padres have Texas, Arizona, Seattle, and Atlanta. So some tough matchups mixed in there for both of those teams. So with, 12 games or 11 games headed in, I'm curious just to see how that plays. I'm curious what the lead is at the All-Star break. As far as Dodgers pitching, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm not worried about Glasnow. I'll say that right off the get-go.
No,
I know
neither.
he's been bad. He had a bad start, his second worst start of the season, but he'll find it. He'll figure it out. I think Yamamoto, I've said all along, I'm not convinced he's going to come back this season. That's not based on any inside information. It's just based on the fact that when you dig into what a torn rotator cuff, even a partially torn rotator cuff, the recovery timeline is a big question mark, unlike Mookie's broken hand, which has a pretty definitive, 2.5 month timeline. Yamamoto's is like, we hope he'll be back at some point. That's scary. I think the Dodgers have been fortunate because obviously Glasnow has been pretty consistent. I think Gavin Stone has been fantastic. Landon Knack has been fantastic. And you mentioned, James Paxton, I've been low on Paxton all year because I know the traditional metrics, the wins and loss, that ERA type stuff has been good for him. But when you looked at the StatCast stuff, the underlying metrics, they were all not just like average, they were like really, really bad. And so I think he's probably closer to like a 4.5 to 4.8 ERA guy from here on out, which fine, we'll take the innings, but isn't going to be somebody you get super fired up about. And then Bobby Miller, I think there's real concern about Bobby Miller as well. I think he needs some time to settle in, but I've also kind of been hesitant to anoint him the next number one guy because, again, you look at the underlying metrics, it's been good but not great. And so if they get good but not great Bobby Miller, that's going to be an asset. And so I have concerns there. Clayton Kershaw shut down for a week. I'm not too worried about that because I think that's just a natural part of the recovery process is that there's going to be a couple of these speed bumps along the way. As long as he does start to throw this week, which I believe Fabian Ardaya said he's expected to, then I'm not going to be worried about that. You've got Dustin May potentially at some back, depending on the role. And then there's a couple guys I just saw down in Reno with Oklahoma City. Justin Robleski, he's a lefty who throws 100 miles an hour with 5 other pitches. And then River Ryan, who's the top prospect who's working his way back from injury. So I think the Dodgers have a number of guys in the mix, but I also totally understand that if you tried to pin down who are the 4 guys you're going to trust to make a start in the first or second round of the postseason, I'm not sure that list goes longer than Tyler Glasnow and Gavin Stone right now.
Right. And we've seen about, I want to start with Tyler Glasnow real fast. I didn't itch in my sorry. Glasnow, is there any concern for you? I think it's just a little bit for me. He is 17 innings away from his all-time career high in innings pitched. It's not even the All-Star break yet. He is 4 starts away from his all-time high in starts at 21. He's at 17 right now. He is just about at all of his career highs before the All-Star break. Is that concerning to you at all?
I got crushed on Twitter, rightfully so, because when they made this trade, I wasn't super fired up about the Tyler Glasnow trade. I liked Ryan Pepio, who, by the way, has started to pitch pretty decently for Tampa Bay. But my concern with Glasnow was the injury stuff. I looked through just not having any information, just looking at innings pitched and saying, man, that seems like a lot to give up for a guy that's a major medical question mark. They go on and sign him to an extension. That makes the trade better in my estimation because it wasn't an expensive extension. And so, all right, we're not getting a guy for 1 year. Now we're getting him for 5. I like that. But the biggest thing for me was we had Will Carroll, who some people might know on Twitter as injury expert. But he came on the show and talked me through kind of the elbow injury that Glasnow had and basically said, there's nothing to worry about here. He had an injury. It was kind of misdiagnosed, mistreated. It lingered for 2 seasons. He got it fixed. It's a procedure that has become very common and a procedure that's had a really high success rate. And so he was basically like, I wouldn't have any issues about the elbow and his ability to pitch. So having heard that, that changed my entire tune on the Glasnow trade, because if the guys who know injuries and know elbows say, yeah, I know the innings pitch is low, but it's because he had this injury that never got treated, and now it's been treated, and now he's healthy. I'm never going to love a guy throwing 200 innings no matter what, but I have far less concern about Glasnow based on his injury history, more so than just 2024 being a starting pitcher.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I think that he just, how he's looked, it doesn't look like he's kind of slowing down.
Yeah.
If he's fatigued, there's none of that stuff. I do think that when it gets to the All-Star break, I don't think he's going to be an All-Star and maybe you know better, but I don't think he's going to be an all-star, and that's probably better for him. So that he has a little bit of time to just kind of take some time off and just, you know, kind of rest the arm, do that thing, and be ready for the second half. The other guy is Gavin Stone. I think he has been absolutely fantastic. He's been amazing to watch. I really am impressed with how he's looked on the field. My only concern, and you know, Jeff, I go very hard onto the concern portion. You're super optimist. I'm like, well, what about this? And that's kind of how I am with Gavin Stone. I've seen this so many times as for Dodger pitchers. Yeah. Alex Wood did it 1 year. Ross Stripling did it 1 year. Tony Gonsolin did it 1 year. There's Tyler Anderson did it at one point. Really, really good first half. A young guy comes in, is absolutely just blowing guys away in that first half, goes to the All-Star game, pitches in the All-Star game. I don't think it has anything to do with the All-Star game. It just happens to be that he pitches in it. And then in the second half, it just straight downhill, and they can't maintain it. Is Gavin showing you anything in the advanced metrics or wherever you like to look at? Is Gavin showing you anything that says he's going to be the opposite of the rule?
Yeah, you can just call him nerd stats. That's what Matt Moreno calls them. Just the nerd, all those nerd numbers. What do they say?
Like WRC plus. I still don't get it.
WRC plus is barely a nerd stat, Greg. We could get way nerdier than Wade Red's graded plus.
Expected bacon or whatever there is.
Yeah, expected bacon. Yeah, exactly. Two things about Gavin Stone give me confidence. I'll say three things. One is he has the pedigree. This is a guy who is a top 50 prospect in Major League Baseball. And so I think even 18 months ago, 2 years ago, prior to struggling last year, there was real reason to believe that this guy was going to become a dude. And we've talked a lot on our show, probably more of a high floor guy than a high ceiling guy, although I think he's started to prove that there is a ceiling there as well. But he has the prospect pedigree, so to some degree, this was expected. Last year, there's been lots of reports about a blister that messed with his mechanics, and that's why he struggled. So I think the fact that this isn't totally unexpected from him, big picture, makes me feel better about it. Second, talking to guys within the Dodgers organization, just from a personality perspective, you know, the term dog is completely overused in today's world.
I hate it.
He's a guy that's described like that, as just the want to, the fire in his eyes, the competitiveness. So that makes me confident as well. Not to say that Ross Stripling or any of those guys didn't have it, but I'm just talking specifically about Gavin Stone. As far as the numbers, I don't have them in front of me. They've been pretty encouraging. He's way more of a limit hard contact kind of a guy than he is a blow stuff past you. We know that. But I think limiting hard contact is a skill, and I think he has the arsenal between the changeup, the slider. He's messed with his pitch mix a little bit, and so I think there is some sustainability to his ability to limit hard contact, as well as continue to miss bats, as well as just limit the walk. So if you kind of throw those three things together, don't let them hit the ball hard, strike some guys out, and don't really walk anybody, that's a recipe for success. Again, I don't think it's like the next Walker Buehler, Tyler Glasnow, blow stuff by you, 12 strikeout type stuff. But I think it's a guy who can get you 4 or 5 strikeouts, consistently eat some innings for you, and keep the ERA low. So I actually do think there's a sustainable version of what Gavin Stone has been. I'm not expecting him to have the 10th best ERA in Major League Baseball all season, but if it sits in the low threes, it's hard not to be thrilled with that kind of performance.
No, absolutely. So at the same time, so then you're comfortable with him going into a playoff series right now.
Yeah, I don't think I would love it if he's the number 2 starter, but if he was number 3 or even 4, I'd feel great. I just got the metrics up. So he's 75th percentile in average exit velocity. So if you need me to unpack that one for you, that's how hard the ball comes off the bat.
Thank you for that one.
He's in the top 25% for basically how hard the contact is. He's 85th percentile in how often the batter is barreling the ball. He's 84th percentile in how often the batter has a exit velocity over 95 miles an hour. All those numbers are good. And so expected ERA is good. So I think there's some sustainability, again, not as like a number 1, number 2 type, but number 3, I think he could slot in there comfortably. I just think you need a Yamamoto or a Kershaw to step up, or Bobby Miller to step up, or go trade for Garrett Crochet or whatever. I think they're going to need somebody to sit in that number 2 spot for us to feel really good heading into the postseason.
So I don't know what the deal looked like, but you mentioned Garrett Crochet, and I saw that the Dodgers did make a kind of a run at Crochet, and the White Sox said no because either they didn't get enough prospects or the right prospects. Yeah. I don't know. Did you hear anything along those lines? I just saw the Bob Nightingale report.
Yeah, I haven't heard who the guys were that were offered. He's an interesting one because he has so much team control. I believe he has 3 more years of team control. He's not a free agent until 2027. So this year plus 2 more for Crochet. If you're worried about Tyler Glasnow's innings, though, Greg, let me introduce you to Garrett Crochet. He's thrown 101.1 innings this year. He had 73 innings total across major leagues and minor leagues from 2020 to 2023. 73 innings total in the 3.5 years prior to this one. The White Sox have already said he's going to be on an innings limit. The thing that scares me the most is that the White Sox are willing to give this guy up with 2.5 years of team control. That tells me they're terrified of him getting injured and having another Tommy John surgery and possibly missing out. So I think there's some real risk with going after Crochet. That said, when he's pitching, quality over quantity, the stuff's electric. 12.5 strikeouts per 9, just 1.78 walks per 9. I mean, that type of combo you just don't find in a guy in starting pitchers who are available. So I understand why the Dodgers are interested. I also understand why this might be a hard guy to sort of agree upon value for.
Yeah, no, I completely hear you. We got to get going. It's already 9:55. That went by really, really fast. So quickly tell everybody where they can find you, Jeff Spiegel.
Yeah, at Jeff Spiegel on Twitter. The thing I'll plug today is if you head over to DodgerBlue1958 on YouTube, I mentioned a couple times I spent the last week with Oklahoma City, but I've got 15 interviews that are either posted over the last few days, but will be posted in the next couple days. So DodgerBlue1958 on YouTube. Check that out.
All right. Thank you very much. And the guys in the back decided to take it off of mute. Sorry there, Parker. Took it off of mute. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thank you to LAX. We're going to let you guys get to Travis and Sliwa, who are live on the road, and we can get into more of this tomorrow with you, Jeff, because you're going to be back tomorrow. So thank you very much for doing it. Thanks a lot for you guys all being there, and thank you to LAX.